Welcome to the Parlor,
your hub for independent art and entertainment,
as well as a platform to showcase independent artists and entertainers abroad. Hi there, I'm Brody Barcode.
I'm Ryan James.
And welcome to the Parlor. Go ahead, sir.
And today we have part of our new education series. We have Insymmetry Productions, Matt Knowles, and Steph Cannon. They are content creators of graphic novels, comic books, metal music, just about anything. And what we're going to discuss today is on how they create their characters, their stories, and deal with the scripting. Because I believe that even for filmmakers, having to develop characters and storylines to create and character arcs is kind of a universal thing, even in comic books and graphic novels.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to bring these two on, and since they are local, with the exception of Steph, she's out in California. Matt is here in Ocala with us, and we wanted to give them some spotlight on what they do and how they go about with their projects.
So with that being said, how are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Yeah, doing good. I appreciate you guys for having us on. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
you're very
absolutely.
welcome.
So my first question, I'm sure you guys have gotten this several times. How did you get into the business as far as for creating Insymmetry Creations? And actually, it's a kind of a two-part question. At what point did you guys realize, like, man, I am doing everything that I have dreamt of doing, and here I am?
Well, that's definitely two good questions. I'll take the first one.
All right.
So both Steph and I were creating content before we started working together. I had a long history of being a metal musician. The former band I was in did like 5 or 6 albums. One of the guys that was in that band is actually pretty famous now, and he's, toured the world before the pandemic, but he's still known, worldwide for what he does. But things didn't really go that way for me, and I stepped away from music for quite a bit. And after about 7-8 years, I decided to get back into it, but I wanted to do something more. And so I was wanting to write metal music, but I wanted more of a backstory. So I started writing ebooks, and that ebook turned into an illustrated novel. And then I wanted to release where the album and the graphic novel or the ebook kind of tied together. It took until Steph and I met for me to realize that what I was trying to do from a comic book side of things needed somebody like Steph that actually understood the comic book side of things. So that was from my side. That's how I kind of came to doing what Steph and I do together now. Steph's got her own piece to that puzzle, but the thing that was neat for me was, and I think we both realized this, was when I thought I knew everything I needed to know, and it took meeting somebody who actually knew a lot of stuff that I didn't know to go, whoa, I really did not have a clue about this aspect. And I'm glad that the yang to my yin kind of met, and so we could pool our talents and our resources together. But I'll let Steph tell her side of the story there, and then we can go on to your other question.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I've wanted to be a writer my whole life, and actually it's 2 parts. I wanted to be a writer and do kind of journalistic stuff and pro stuff, but I also wanted to my first love has always been movies, so I always wanted to do stuff in movies. And was busy raising kids for a while, and then once they got a little bit older and I could start thinking about things for myself again, I realized that a lot of the stories I had in my head I was picturing either in movie form or comic form. And I had a friend who was working on a graphic novel and gave me some recommendations for some books that I could read about, because I think a lot of people don't realize that you can't just sit down and write a comic. There's a whole process to it. You have to write out scripts, and they're very similar to screenplays. In fact, a lot of the people that we talk to and a lot of other comic writers that I know have read a lot of screenplay books, and have read tutorials from screenwriters on the internet. But I wanted to be a writer, and I finally said, you know what, now is as good a time as any. And so I did I was kind of writing a graphic novel script, and then I heard of an online competition, and they had a category for a 1-page comic. And
Oh,
I said, well,
that's
that'd be
cool.
kind of cool. One page is really
Yeah.
challenging, but also really easy. So I don't have as much to lose because making comics is really expensive. And
Really?
yeah, which we can definitely touch on at some point here is that
Yeah.
it is. And I ended up getting, I was a finalist in that competition, and I had that artwork like in my Facebook like profile or my cover or whatever. And Matt saw the artwork and really liked it. And that's how we ended up meeting. And it was not that long after that we formed Insymmetry Creations, and we knew we named it Insymmetry Creations and not Insymmetry Comics because we knew that we wanted to do a lot more with content creation and not just kind of put ourselves in a corner and just do comics, even though we love doing comics as well.
Absolutely. One quick question before we tackle the second half of that question. When writing a script for a graphic novel, is it similar to like every scene? I mean, you said it was similar to a screenplay. Is every scene like every panel, like you have your main description and whatever lines that are meant to be in there? So then scene 2 is the next panel or page that you're doing, right? Or
Yeah.
something similar.
Yeah, you definitely are looking, say, like when we're working on a script, hey, we want to make sure that this scene is going to happen here. In our minds, we can tell this scene in, say, 4 pages or 2 pages. And then we say,
Okay.
what do we need to do in that 4 pages or 2 pages to accurately communicate it? Then we have to write, unlike when you're writing screenplays, which I can only tell you from theoretical because I've never written a screenplay, but just seeing what screenplays are, they're going to be a little more general about what the angle is and where you want the camera work to be.
Yeah, it leaves it up to
When
the
it-
director.
Yeah, when it comes to comics, you have to, if you have a specific angle for a panel, you need to let the artist know. Especially for us, most of our art teams are not from the US.
Mhm.
Sometimes they've got a strong handle on the English language, sometimes they don't. So we have to make sure that we are very descriptive and don't take anything for granted, because if we want somebody to have open eyes or closed eyes in a fight scene, you might have to actually specify that because they may not know, they may not know the difference. They may not
Reasonable.
know the slang. But
Yeah, you have to really spell it out. And also a lot of comic scripts, and when I was writing them, I was doing more of the screenplay formula where you'll start it off and say exterior night, a brief description, and then go and break it down by panel. You say an overhead shot, or you've got to really lay all of that out. And it's better to over explain to an artist than under explain, because
Right.
then the artist, if they're confused, then they have to reach out to you. And if there's a time difference, maybe you don't get back to them, and then they're like, I can't work, literally can't draw because I'm waiting for my writer to explain this scene to me better
Oh,
because I don't
yeah.
understand it, especially if there's a language
Lots
barrier.
Yeah,
of
especially if
working
you got like a
parts.
deadline and you're trying to meet it. And it's like,
Exactly.
Yeah, lots.
hey
of working
guys,
Yeah.
just
Well, one of
leaving
the things
another
that-
message.
one of the things that we do, and it's the running joke, but it's actually very true, is I live and die by Google Docs and Google Sheets. And all of our scripts are written in Google Sheets. And we actually had an artist one time that was like, I want to work with you guys on the next script, just so I can have another one of your scripts, because we do it in Google Sheets, so it's a living document. So
Right.
Steph can have it open, I can have it open. It can be opened by an artist in India or Brazil or Guatemala or wherever it may be. And if there's a question, they pop on Messenger, hey, page 14, panel 2, I need a little more description, or I think you have a typo there and it doesn't make sense. And I could just, I could be out of the house and pop on my phone and just go fix the script for them in real time, and they can watch us fix the script. And
It's beautiful how technology has really
So
been able
nice.
to integrate our lives to make it simpler, especially since the pandemic of having to be away, distancing and everything.
yeah.
I mean, what we do with our videos here, Brody will shoot some.
Speaking of Google, I mean,
We use Google Drive hardcore, and we
Yep.
send the files right on over.
Oh yeah, that's what you got to do in this day and age. I mean, to me, doing it any other way it may be the industry standard, but to me, it seems like the dinosaur way to go about it. Because why should I email somebody a script and then have them be like, oh, are you on version 3, revision
Oh, yeah.
3.7b point A from this day? Oh no, I'm on the one right before that. No, why do we need all these documents? Just one document there. Now Steph and I started writing from being on opposite coasts. One day when we first started realizing we had a writing chemistry, we started a spreadsheet and just put any writing idea we had. And there was like 26 of them at that point. And some of them are still sitting there waiting to be done at some point, whenever. Some of them became basis for whole series. Some became basis for like a scene in a series.
Right.
And so it's, whenever we have a chance, we just go up there and we throw an idea up there so we can capture it for potential further use. And it's been a big, big help for us.
That is so cool.
What is your guys' general process in writing a script and like putting everything together? This way we can let the audience know of your guys' process.
Well, especially too, being the fact as far as communicating and working together on both sides of the the US, just making that work and bringing it all together.
Well, one of the good things is the different stories we have all have very different processes. When you've got one of our main stories is Heirs of Isildur, which is a steampunk time travel series where steampunk comics and metal collide. That's one that I brought in from before we met. That's what I was working on when Steph and I met. So that one's got the big, huge, long-term overarching arcs. There's notes that were taken on the stories that we're working on from 2017. Steph and I put together a full series called Tales from Nocturnia, where she and I, from beginning to end, actually structured the entire arc together. But then we also have Misfits Clubhouse, which is our all ages title on Scout Comics. And that one is probably the easiest one for us to be able to articulate how our process works, being on different coasts. Because that one, the issues are all single issues with a bunch of short stories in there. So it doesn't matter if it's the issue that's already out or the issue that's going to be coming out. You can take all those stories and just shake them up in a blender and put them back out there, and it doesn't matter the order that they're in. Cool. So it could be a story that I've got the idea for, that I brought the idea forward. It could be the story that Steph had the idea for, that she brought the idea forward. And we both allow the other person to have the opportunity to be in the driver's seat. And the reason why we say that is I may be in the driver's seat, but that doesn't mean that that's the only important position, because if Steph is the one that has the map telling me not to drive off course in the passenger seat, that's just as important as the driver's seat, and vice versa. She might have a great idea and what were you trying to get out of this idea? I might have some ideas there. No, that's not really the way I wanted to go on it. And we kind of go from there.
Okay. And with your character development process for for the Misfits Clubhouse, and you say, even though it's different stories, I mean, who is there somebody that takes on a role more than others, or just you both bounce off of a main idea and it winds up sometimes one is more than the other, and it's just you both throwing the other curveball, so to speak, the fun curveball in the creation process?
With Misfits, it was fun because the original concept that we had was pretty different, but it still centered around a group of kids. And somewhere along the way, we kind of decided we wanted to do something slightly different, just because there's Stranger Things. There's a lot of media out there right now that centers around a group of kids. And we decided to make the kids a little bit younger. And we said, I can't even remember how we decided that they were going to have two animal friends, that it was going to be a boy and a girl. And then they were going to have two animal friends that were going to be, that were going to talk. And we actually, it was fun too, because we actually said, what's an animal? Matt said, what's an animal, like a random animal that's not like a dog or a cat, because that's too, that's
stereotypical.
Too normal. Yeah, exactly. And so I think I said sloth. I can't even remember now.
You said ferret. I said
ferret. And he said sloth, and we said, sure. That sounds great.
Hey, it's different, and people have fallen in love with those. I mean, my wife has had many ferrets, and she loves ferrets, the little slinkies. And
we just wanted to pick something fun. Yeah, I was like, pick a character, pick an animal that's not a cat or dog. She's like, ferret. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to pick a sloth. that's going to be in our story.
And that was
Okay,
what it
now
was.
let's figure it out.
So sometimes it's really easy like that. And then you have other stories, like our medieval fantasy story, Tales from Nocturne, is very character centric, just like any other medieval fantasy story that you have out there, like Game of Thrones or anything like that. There's a lot of characters because it's about a kingdom. And so that one was a little bit more, we knew what our main character was going to be, because he actually made an appearance in the Steampunk Time Travel series.
I remember Matt talking to me about
yeah,
that.
it's a spin-off. So we knew him and we knew what was going to happen with him, and we had to kind of build all the characters around him, because this was a story about him, but it was about the kingdom as well. And somewhere along the line, I remember I had a conversation with Matt, and I said, we've got to have some familial things going on here, because we just had a bunch of random characters and no one was related to each other. And I said, this is a kingdom, and this is in a time where, you know, there's big families, and we got to have some sort of family ties to make it a little bit more intriguing and interesting, so that the conflicts and the relationships that people are having with one another are a little bit more deep rooted.
Understood.
So going back around to
Sorry.
part B
Yes.
of that.
I have a tendency to
question.
derail things very, very quick.
No,
It's all good. It's all good.
I was thinking about, so I guess for both of you, actually, like, when did it just hit you? I mean, were you guys already collaborating, or, I mean, was there a point where it's like, damn, I am doing everything that I have dreamt of doing since whenever, you know, it all started?
You know, I think we both are going to have a different answer for this one. I like to take a pragmatic approach here and say, I don't know if I'm doing everything that I want to do right now, but I know that I am aspiring to continue to do the things that I want
That's
to
fantastic.
do. Because, you know, you always want to build a business that can be self-sustaining.
Right.
And you always want to make sure the arrow is pointed in the right direction. And
Of course.
would I say that the business is exactly where I want to be right now? Of course it isn't, because I'm not going to go pay my mortgage based on what we do.
Right.
But we at least know that it's pointed in the right direction. We are very in tune with making sure that we are always talking about where our business is today, where we're trying to go. But then in 3 months, we're going to have that exact same conversation, and it might be completely different than the conversation that we had 3 months prior. And we know we have to pivot and adjust and be okay with doing that, because what we thought we wanted a year ago may not even be feasible nowadays. What was happening pre-pandemic, or when the pandemic first started and everybody had stimulus money, you know, that's not what the economy is right now. So we may have to think a little bit differently with what we're doing. But I like to answer your question, I am happy with the things that we are doing, knowing that there's nothing more that we could be doing in the course of a day to try and continue to grow what we're doing. And like I said, I'm not sure if that's the same answer Steph would have, but that's how I would approach it.
For me, I don't ever want to say I'm doing everything that I've ever dreamed of doing, because I feel like if I were to ever say that, I'd become complacent, and I'd just go, oh, well, I would kind of get lackadaisical about it. At the same time, I am a very, I guess you could say emotional, like I've just, my head's in the clouds a lot. And so there are definitely moments where I literally wanted to be a writer since I was 10 years old. And so I do have moments where I step back and I go, oh my God, this is what I wanted to do since I was a little girl. And I get really excited. And so we do have those moments, especially when we have, I don't know, like an example is at Spookala, which was the horror convention in Ocala, Florida, that we did. And Matt was the MC and the host, and he was interviewing all these celebrities, and he interviewed and sat on stage with Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows, which is one of my favorite shows, one of Matt's shows that he loves. And you can't help but have that fangirl moment when you're like, oh, we never thought that this is what we would be doing, that we're just hanging out with Harvey, like, and so there are those moments, and it was just that whole entire show, the energy, the love that we got from people, the support, those are things that I never would have even imagined. So I'm also doing things that I never even knew I wanted to do as badly as I'm doing them now. And it's aspiring us to do even more with that. So sky's the limit, I say.
I understand the sentiment where you come from, Steph, because I always feel like I need to be moving in one form or fashion. Even if I'm doing research to learn new techniques, especially like video editing, or what I do is lighting, primarily a lot of lighting design here at the college. And I do some acting as well, same as Brody. And, if I always feel if I stop, I'm not going to go anywhere else. I need to continually move forward in one way or another, even if it's learning a small mundane tidbit that may actually help me speed up a workflow or something in order to make my life easier or somebody else's life easier while working on a project together with somebody. It's definitely makes things more worth it, and also it always makes it feel like collaboration rather than a job.
Yeah.
I prefer everything that I do more of a collaboration, because I don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. And building, throwing, spitballing, shooting darts at a dartboard, kind of putting those ideas together can really make something great. Something bigger than both of yourself and the person you're collaborating with, and something that you can walk away being proud of.
We plan on doing this forever, as long as we can, and we don't want to ever limit ourselves. And so we're always open to new opportunities that might come our way, because you never know what that opportunity might lead to another one, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's
like you just said about collaboration too. That's one of the biggest strengths that Steph and I have, is that we both know that we can trust the other person, and that, let's say that I write something and she's the editor, or vice versa, where she's the writer and I'm the editor. We know the other person has got the right same mindset that we do, and they're going to want the same out of that final product that we do, so we can trust what their suggestions are. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be taken. Steph might say, hey, here's 5 ideas or 5 things that you got to fix, and I'm like, well, 4 of them I'm going to go with. One of them I really like that, and I'm going to push back because I really think we should go that way. The other direction, Steph has got a encyclopedia now, not really encyclopedia, but maybe 1/2 of a single volume of an encyclopedia of articles that she's written for sites like Fangoria, Horror Geek Life, Horror Buzz, Creepy Kingdom. She writes those articles and I'm the editor on it. And 9 times out of 10, she goes with the edits that I've given her, because she knows I'm not going to give them to her unless there's a good reason behind it. But that doesn't mean that every single thing that I give her, she's like, just, without even looking, just blank check, just going in there and fixing things. She's like, oh, I really like, that was a cool idea that I had. You want me to edit that thing out? No, I'm taking it.
Now, as far as from the collaborative standpoint, and that do you guys collaborate and work together with that of what you do, Matt, from the music standpoint? Does that also kind of intertwine? I mean, I know that's in your wheelhouse. Is there collaborations in that aspect?
So the musical side of things, there's probably the least amount of collaboration in the end product, just because I'm someone who's been a musician my entire life, but that doesn't mean that there's not collaboration in any way. Whether it was the lyrics, and Steph having some input on the lyrics, or just even not really editing, but just having some input on the concepts of it. There were a few times when we actually did a chat just like this with our violin player. We had a live violin player on a few of the songs, and Steph and myself and the violin player were all on video chat with him recording his parts just like this. That is so
cool.
That's it's amazing.
So there's some stuff like that made it on the album in that way. Steph was able to cut some backup vocals on a couple of songs here and there, and probably not the kind of backup vocals you'd expect. She's got a mean scream, I'll tell you that.
Awesome.
But so it wasn't on the musical side collaboration where it was like what we would do on comics. It was more so she was kind of making sure to keep me in line, keep me sane.
Right.
I was telling her where we wanted to go with the music. So she definitely had a lot more of a
more like a good producer.
Yeah, I was gonna say an assistant producer vibe than anything when it came to the music.
Yep.
That's awesome.
We're just about out of time.
You want to try that one again?
Yeah, we are just about out of time. Now that I slowed down a little bit.
That super sucks, man. That flew by.
I
Yeah.
agree.
It really did.
It was a lot
Yeah,
better
no,
whenever we could have unlimited time, even an hour's worth of time on this type of thing with the free, but
Well, what we'll
Can't
have to
believe-
do is come back around for, let's say, like a volume 2.
yeah, and
Sure.
actually just
Yeah,
have
like that idea.
a
Yeah.
true,
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
do a separate one set away from the education.
Because I've
series.
got at least like 6 more questions for you guys. So
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, no, well, going back to what Ryan was saying at the beginning of our chat,
What is your guys's going from A to Z quick rundown process of getting a project done?
and I guess we can focus on for this episode, like, let's say knocking out a graphic novel or knocking out a comic book, like just that rundown.
Well, I would say what I like to tell people is know what your concept is, know what your climax is, and know how many steps it's going to take to get there. Because there's some people, a lot of people want to go, I've got this great idea. This is going to be great for a story. And you're like, okay, well, that's a cool concept, but where is it going? If it doesn't go anywhere, that concept doesn't mean anything. How long is it going to be? Because like Steph and I work with a couple of girls that she knows in California that have got this long, incredibly huge arc in mind for what they're going to do for a manga. But I think both of us, and Steph, correct me if I'm wrong, we think they probably can do it because one's the artist and one's a writer, and they know what's going on. But a lot of other people have this big, huge, massive story. And what we tell them always is, what's the first little bit that you can write that's going to go and intrigue Kevin James, is going to go intrigue Parlor Productions to want to read your 35 issue arc. Nobody cares about that arc if you can't catch them in the first 4 to 8 pages.
Agreed.
So that's kind of where we start. I mean, I will stop. So Steph, you can input on there if you'd like as well.
Yeah, and the creative process and creating a story is different for everybody. But as Matt stated earlier, he is staunch on Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and I didn't work that way, and I still am not the most technologically savvy. So it took me a little while to get used to it. But now I can't imagine doing it a different way, just because we've always been doing it that way.
Once you get into the system, you can't go back.
Exactly. And that's not to advocate for Google Drive to say that's the only way you can do it. Just find what works for you that is going to be cohesive and isn't going to give you a situation where you lose an entire document, or anything like that could, you don't want technology to work against you. You want it to aid you.
You want to work with it, not for it.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked earlier about knowing your ending as well. You have to know how your story ends. We say there's a lot of people that have idea. Anybody can have a great idea. Every single person can have an idea. They're idea guys. Yeah. They have a great idea. They don't ever really execute it because they don't know how to fill in all those little holes along the way. If you have an ending and you have a beginning, you can we're actually working on a script for the latest edition, I guess you could say, latest issue of Heirs of Isildur, and we're still filling, but we know exactly how it's ending, and we've got the beginning. There's just these small little things that we have to still kind of fill in, and so, but you can't get there until you know what your story is about.
Right.
Little tidbits about the characters, all that stuff can come with time. You have to know your basis, and you have to have a good solid ending, because if you don't have a good solid ending, that's the word people and reviewers you're going to lose them.
Yeah, the other thing we like to tell people too, and I know Steph had touched on it earlier, is be realistic about what your expectations are. That doesn't mean don't shoot for the stars, because you always want to have the biggest expectations known to man. But understand, hey, if you're a one-man show and you don't have a whole lot of money, don't plan on going and hiring artists that work for Marvel to do your comic book,
right?
Because you're not going to have the money, and you're not going to have the understanding of how to work with these guys that's going to be able to get the most out of what they can do. Do something realistic. Don't feel like that you have to, as Steph always says, don't feel like you have to write your magnum opus first.
Yeah.
Make sure you can do something that can be completed. It means more to people to see somebody that's got a bunch of 4 or 6 page scripts that are done and released. The first thing Steph ever released was a 2-page story that got published. And that 2-page story got picked up by a publisher that helped her to get some huge opportunities that a lot of people just dream of. And it came from her utilizing what she did on that 2-page story.
That's awesome.
There's nothing wrong with people doing that, getting in an anthology and using that to build, because if you do that, you might have artists come to you and be like, hey man, I really like what you did there. Let's see if we can work together. And people notice that. They'll say, hey, you know what, if I want to go run a Kickstarter, people want to know that you've finished something. I finished this thing, it's in this anthology, so you know I can take a project from A to Z and get it done. And then you can start working on your bigger projects. That's one of the good things I learned from Steph. I started off, let's write a magnum opus. Let's write this big, massive thing. And she's like, I'm the queen of the 1-page comic, even though she never called herself
No,
that.
I never,
But
no,
she-
I never called myself the queen of anything.
when we
I would
met,
never do that.
when we met, she had like 7 or 8 stories done that in totality combined was like 18 pages. But she had finished like 8 different things and totally like 18 pages. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the one over here working on the 11-issue arc that's got a metal album that's attached to it. And there's going to be other arcs after that. We're like, wow, we completely from 2 different sides of the coin and that meshed in the middle.
That's too cool.
Well, Matt, Steph,
Thank you
so much. I
you guys.
greatly apologize that we've already come to a close for this volume
by
1, if
fast.
you will, but there will be a
Yeah, we
there will
would definitely
be
love
a
to have you back
volume
on.
2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Love to.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And yeah, go ahead, man.
If you enjoyed our interview and working on our first episode of the education videos, please hit the subscribe button. Our interview will also be in podcast form, not codcast. I don't know why I always screw that up. Yeah, I know, that's really weird, isn't it? In podcast form on via Anchor FM, so on the major platforms: Google, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Thank you very much. You all have a happy one.
See ya. Thanks a lot,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.